Hey, what's up you guys? Ben here. The release of the Tudor P01 was definitely one of the more controversial releases in recent history, not only because of its polarizing design with its unusual shape, but also because many Tudor fans were led on into expecting something else. Either way, the Tudor P01 is definitely one of those watches that you either love or hate, and to be frank, I wasn't a big fan of it at the beginning either. But the watch started growing on me as time went on, and when I finally had a chance to see it in person, I was fully converted. I was initially in the market for a Black Bay 58, but after seeing this beast in person, I knew I had to get it. So I sold one of my watches to fund the purchase for this bad boy, and well, the rest is history. My experience with this watch has been quite positive so far. For such a heavy-faced watch, the P01 actually wears quite nicely on the wrist, but I'll get more into that in a minute in the review. I've heard from here and there that the P01 was going to be a limited run and was going to be discontinued soon, but only time will tell. If the P01 ends up being a short run, I can see it becoming very collectible in future years. If it isn't a short run, I can still see it becoming very collectible, simply due to the nature of its unusual design. By the way, if you're new to my channel, I talk about anything that has to do with watches and lifestyle. So if you're interested in fulfilling your potential, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up and a subscribe. Anyway, let's move on to the review. The design of the Tudor Black Bay P01 pays tribute to the unique Tudor prototype titled the Commando, which was born in the 60s. The prototype, much like the P01, had a locking bezel mechanism because bezel tolerances back then aren't what they're like now. They were more flimsy and more likely to move. The Commando's bezel had a 1 through 12 marking instead of a traditional diver bezel for reasons unknown. The crown was moved to the 4 o'clock position for extra durability. In 2019, Tudor released sort of a reiteration of the Commando prototype. It pays heavy tribute to the prototype as the P01, or what I like to consider as the Pug, has features that are identical to the prototype, such as the locking bezel mechanism, crown at 4 o'clock, bulkier case, and etc. I have to credit the nickname Pug for this watch to the London watch collector, because as he put it, just like a pug, this watch is very unusual looking, but you just can't help but love it, at least for me. Within the Tudor Black Bay P01 lies the in-house caliber MT5612, which is COSC certified just like Rolex movements. From my personal experience, Tudor movements have similar levels of accuracy and precision compared to that of Rolex movements. The main difference between the two comes in the quality of finishing, which is understandable considering Rolexes are in a higher price tier. This Tudor has a power reserve of approximately 70 hours, which is actually quite solid by modern standards. Unlike other Tudor Black Bays, the crown is positioned at 4 o'clock for extra added protection against impact. The dial is black and the hour markers have the appearance of a faux patina. The sapphire crystal is slightly domed, and the domed sapphire crystal, in addition to the faux patina of the hour markers, evoke a more vintage feel. That is vintage, but with the robust construction of modern day watches. The watch is brush finished to resemble more of a utilitarian look, which is what this watch was designed for after all. Being a younger brother of Rolex, Tudor has always lived in the shadow of its older brother, although I will admit that's becoming less and less the case as Tudor is becoming more popular. The Tudor and Rolex relationship is something that has always hindered me from pulling a trigger for a Tudor. But something that really drew me into this Tudor Black Bay P01 is the fact that there's nothing like it in the market. It really is unique, and the fact that it's a conversation starter type of piece is only icing on the cake. The case diameter for this watch is 42mm, but due to its massive 55.5mm lug-to-lug length, the watch wears more like a 44 or even a 45mm watch. My wrist size is 7.1 inches, and I would recommend this watch for anyone with the wrist size down to 6 inches, or approximately 15.5 centimeters. I know this watch looks big, but it's one of those watches that are meant to fit large. It's kind of supposed to stand out and have people looking over. This is definitely not a watch you would want to wear in really formal settings, let's say like with a Datejust or a Patek Nautilus. The strap is leather on top and rubber at the bottom for comfort. The strap width of this watch is 20mm, so you could switch it out for a different strap, but if you're gonna do that, make sure you get a strap on the shorter side, simply due to the fact that the case of the P01 alone will take a lot of real estate on your wrist. Unlike traditional divers, the bezel has a 1 through 12. This combined with the fact that the bezel can rotate bidirectionally is pretty bizarre, but this makes the watch all the more interesting, at least in my opinion. The bezel is locked with a mechanism to keep it secure. For a bidirectionally rotating bezel, the bezel action is surprisingly crunchy. Here, have a listen. The lume of this watch is quite solid, so you definitely should be okay being able to tell the time in dark situations. The Tudor P01 is definitely not for everyone. It feels utilitarian, but it has aspects that are quite bizarre, like the super lengthy lug length and the unconventional bezel layout. The only two things normal about this watch are the dial and the movement that rests within the watch. If you can get over the anomalies, the watch is actually filled with a lot of charm. It looks monstrous, but in a way that's intriguing. It makes you want to look at it more. What others would view as disgusting, I see it as charmingly funky and handsome. Overall, the P01 is filled with a lot of character, and it's quite decently comfortable for a watch its size. Its interesting history tied to the US Navy is only icing on the cake. This watch is an excellent conversation starter, and people might view it as an ugly duckling for now, but I can see it becoming a swan once it gets discontinued. But for me, this watch is already a winner. It's a swan in my book, even before it's been discontinued. So this may not be a watch that suits everyone's taste, but if you want something different with an interesting history, the Tudor P01 might just be a great addition to your collection. Also, let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think about this watch? Do you guys think it's hideous or handsome? I'd be curious to know. As always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.